Thus far, we always worked with those built-in form input elements. And of course, you will work with those a lot. But sometimes you also need to build your own one. Well, let's do that now. I will build a rating control element here, which allows the user to pick a rating. So here we'll have a template, and I want to have an unordered list in there because I will have 3 choices. First choice is poor, second choice is average, third choice is great. Now these choices should be clickable, so I will actually add buttons here around these words so that we have better semantics and make it a bit more accessible. And then we can add our scoped styling here, like that. Now, I will keep it relatively simple. I'll just remove the list style from the unordered list, give it a little bit of margin to top and bottom and no margin left and right, remove all padding, and set the display style to flex to use flexbox. And then style the list items to give every item a margin of 1 rem left and right. Give it a border of 1 pixel solid and a light gray color. Padding of 1 rem here. And also set display flex here to justify the content in the center on both axes. If you can't follow along with the styling here, that's no problem. It's not a styling course. You can just type along here, of course. Now for the button in here, I'll give that a font of inherit, no border, and a background color of transparent. Transparent. And set the cursor to pointer to have the proper mouse cursor. Now, that's my rating control. In the form, I now want to use it. So here towards the end, maybe before the accept terms checkbox, I'll add a div with my class of form control. And in there, I'll add my rating control element, which I just created. Now, of course, we need to register it for that to be available. So let's import rating control from /ratingcontrol.view and add the components option here to our configuration object and add rating control. And I'm getting an error that I'm missing an end tag. Yes, this should be a closing button tag here, of course. So now we got these ratings here. When I press them, they all submit the form, which is definitely not what I want, but it makes sense because ultimately these here are buttons inside of a form. So to change this, in the rating control, I will give these buttons here a type of button, which overrides the default of being a submit button, so that these buttons will no longer submit a form if they are in one. And with that, we now no longer see that form being submitted. Now, my idea is simple. Whatever the user selects here should be highlighted, and then of course should also be saved as part of the overall form. Now let's work on the internal highlighting first. For that, we can add a simple class here, active, for example, in the rating control styling, and set the border color to purple here, whichever color you want. I will pick this color here, let's say this one. And I'll select the button inside of an active class element and give that the same color. And the active class should be added to the list item, which is currently active. We can keep track of that by adding a script here with a data property. And in here, we can store the active option. And let's say initially that is null. And when we click a button, the active option should be set to, let's say, A, B, and C, or poor, average, and great, and then the respective list item should be highlighted. For that, we can add methods here, of course, and add an activate method. And here I want to find out which option that was, so I'll accept that option argument and set this active option equal to option. And the activate method here will now be triggered whenever a button is clicked. So here I call activate for poor. On the next button, I'll do that for average. And on the third button, we'll do it for great. And now we just need to pick this value up and add the styling to the proper list item element. By binding class dynamically and adding the active class, which is the class we added down there, if in this case, active option is equal to poor. And I will now copy that to all the list items. Here I check for average, and here I check for great. If we save this, we are able to pick different options, and indeed it gets highlighted. This is all nice, but how can we now connect this to our form?